That's much better. That's what happens. Okay, that's enough photos with the lens cap closed. We're live. It's 9:13, technically in the morning. So this is your morning wake-up show, your morning motivation. Get those projects done. In fact, we're going to maybe make a call here to the car farm guys. And I kind of want to see what happened with his little adventure. So maybe we'll get on the phone with him while we're doing a live feed too. Hopefully everybody's doing good. Still got a little bit of a cough. Makes it difficult to talk a little bit, but I'm still here. But today we want to talk about tune port stuff versus carbureted stuff because I like tune port stuff so much. And the reason that I like it is one, normally when I do testing and then demonstrate, some kind of power change with something. We put a camshaft in, we change the induction system like we're talking about tonight, put a turbo on, nitrous, cylinder heads, whatever it is. But as much as I like dyno time, or as much as I like dyno results, I should say, that's really not the end all be all. There's lots more to consider, just like when we're talking about camshafts. The fact that you have a turbo on there is not in any way, shape, or form the only question you should ask when you're thinking about getting a camshaft. And for this example, power isn't the only thing that should be considered. But we'll look at power first. You guys will be able to see it. I'll go ahead and bring up a graph here. I'll move the camera around so you guys can see. Hopefully you guys can see that. What we have here, we look right up here. This top one, that's the tune port, much more torque up to 4,400. And then the carburetor, much more horsepower, all the way out to 6,000. So the crossover point, about 4,400. More torque down low for the tune port, more horsepower up high for the carburetor. And that's a a typical kind of, we'll put us back here. Typical kind of dual plane, this was a dual plane, probably an RPM or something. And then, in fact, I'll go look, probably a 650 carburetor, I'd imagine, on this mild combination. Former RPM intake, Demon 650 carburetor. Both of them had, this was supposed to be a stock aluminum headed L98 350. It made pretty good power. I'm thinking that there might have been some kind of cam in it. I'm not sure. Actually, I'm not sure if this was a stock cam. We just ran it because this is the way that we got the motor from the guys at the Chevy Race Shop way back in the day. So this is one of the tune port motors that we got, and we ran it. The thing I like about it the most, I think, I like the tune port induction system, but I also like I like those factory valve covers. They actually look pretty nice. They're one of my favorite small block ones for the factory deals. But we ran it with a stock tune port. Excuse me. And then a fast XFI management system and tuned it, and then took that off and ran a carburetor at an MSD distributor. And you saw the power curves there. So what you have is a combination that makes about 30 more foot-pounds of torque down low, and specifically 30 more foot-pounds at 3,200. Yeah, actually 33 foot-pounds. And then quite a bit more power, though, 300. Yeah, so like 50 more horsepower at 5,900. So the trade-off isn't an even horsepower versus torque thing. It's quite a bit different than that. So the question is, which one of those would you want? And so if we look at the power curve, some guys might want the, more of the low speed torque, because a lot of times guys are not running these things more than 5,000 RPM anyway, and almost all the gauge for the tune port in that range. But the thing is, if you were to take this and you lived by your time slips alone, you were taken to the drag strip, this thing would run through the quarter better with the carburetor, because you'd be running it from 4,500 to 6,000 or thereabouts, even from 4,000 to 6,000 or 45 to 65, somewhere in that range. And if you ran it in that range after you launch, it's going to be there basically the whole time, and it's going to be accelerating in the range, in the average power production that greatly favors the carbureted deal. So again, but still, that's not an absolute, even though one might accelerate better, especially at the track. Is that what you're looking for? So that's an important question. I mean, if maximum power was the thing, the carburetor makes more power, not by a lot, not a lot more peak power. Yes, a lot more peak power. I take that back. 332 versus 358. So it did make more peak power. So it made more peak power. It made less peak torque, though, I think. Let's see here. Yes, it made less peak torque. 386 for the carburetor and 395 for the tune port. So, which one do you choose? And then just looking at the power, we have different kinds of people that favor different things are going to choose different things with this. But that's, again, like always, that's not the only question. Like, as much as I like the power curves and as much as that helps decide really which one makes more power, not just more power, but where does it make power? And you know, we can kind of extrapolate what these things would be like on the street based on what we're seeing there, because we know that one that has a lot more low speed power is going to accelerate initially faster, and then the other one's going to accelerate faster. One of them, the tune port one, probably would be more fun for like smoky burnouts and stuff. But that is the next question. What other things are we looking at that would help us decide, you know, which one of these we would choose? So the other things that I would look at are, and I mentioned this in the thumbnail in the description, obviously you'd look at when you open the hood, do you want them to see in your Corvette or Camaro or whatever hopefully you've swapped a tune port motor into a truck, because that's really where it needs to be. But do you want the underhood appearance to be a simple dual plating carburetor? You know, like on a small block? Nothing wrong with that. Works good. Lots of them out there. Or do you want it to be a tune port that you could polish and paint and look awesome? It's up to you guys. What about things like fuel mileage? More than likely, I would lean toward the tune port motor getting better fuel mileage than a carbureted version, even if everything else was the same. The you know, camshaft and heads and rear end gears and tire size and transmission and all that. I still think I would probably favor the tune port over most carbureted applications, unless you really, really went after optimizing fuel mileage on the primary circuitry on the carburetor. Maybe put a quadrajet on it, something like that. Still hard to beat a tune port for fuel mileage. So we got looks and fuel mileage. And then, you know, what if all you want to do are, you know, smoky burnouts? The tune port's definitely going to do that. It's definitely going to have a lot of torque, and it will be able to do that. Probably, honestly, maybe better than the carbureted one, unless you got in the higher RPM ranges. Then the carbureted one probably would work fairly well. But the point is that you have 3 other decisions at least that, you know, and maybe the motor already had the tune port on it, so you don't want to spend the money on gaskets and things. That's the thing. All these other decisions are very important, and sometimes equally important or even more important than a guy deciding, you know, which one makes more power. And even at that, which one makes more average power, which one makes more peak power, which one makes more peak torque, which one makes more average torque, in what RPM range am I running this in? What is my gearing? You know, all of that stuff has to be considered, and that's just the power part of it. And then we've added a whole bunch of other things. So our poll for today. Let's skew this a little bit, and you'll see what word I put in there. So the poll, who would pick a TPI over carb for a small block truck build? Did I favor it one way or the other? Probably did. Oh, that's nice. I think it's probably time to get rid of this. So we will... That one could come down. You are probably not going to. Let's see here. Yeah, and you're still going to go up. That's crazy. Okay, let's see. Lunchtime on the East Coast. That's right. It's only 9:24 here. Almost lunch in Texas. Notify. Java's in the house. Admiral. Nervous using fuel injection as a guy with mainly carb experience. That's another consideration, is what do you feel more comfortable with? What do you have laying around? You know, what can you get at a wrecking yard? What can you personally tune yourself? All of that's a big thing. And if you've done nothing but carburetors, then, you know, that's obviously going to affect the decision. I do have a soft spot for TPI in my heart. The IROC I drove in high school was a stock long block L98, cam, bolt-ons, 13Os, 103. Nice. I had a 85, the iron-headed L98, the tune port Corvette, and that car would run 1389, I think, at 100 plus, 100, between 100.8 and 101. It was actually a really good bracket car. The guy that I bought it from used to bracket race it. Richard, we talked about springs on my small block roller cam. Said that you should stay with the 987s. He hinted at maybe stronger ones. I don't know. I'd have to look at the. I don't know the spring for that application. Do you have, what heads do you have and stuff? I'd have to have the heads in front of me really to science out a set of springs for it. I just don't think that 135 pounds of seat pressure or whatever that 987 is, because I think we've tried that 987 before. I wouldn't run that on a hydraulic roller. It might be good to 5,000 RPM or something like that, but I think you're going to get into valve float. We typically want more than that. Turbo Center, I found the carnage. Rod 3 spun a bearing, and all the other showed detonation. Yep. Soften the tune. Time to soften the tune a little bit. I choose a TPI for nostalgia. Nice. And a carburetor for track. Yeah, what you're using it for is, and sorry to hear about the deal, Centra, but that's all part of the learning experience. I've heard lots of stuff. That's a good idea, Turbo Center Junkyard Motors. That's where you go to get race motors. Ben, I'm with you. I like the tune port. I think it's their best looking intake. Maybe a dual quad cross ram on a 69 Z28, that kind of thing. 155 inlet air temperature. Rebuilding an Autolite 2100, that is cool also. 85 total time was at 25. How much boost is that, Centra? Yeah, this thing, for guys that are talking about the RPM range, this thing, the tune port here made peak power at 4,700. Ran across an old article you wrote about the 383. Yeah, that was pretty torquey. Yeah, if you didn't have water meth on and the IATs were high, do you have an intercooler on it? I don't see the downside of using a TPI in trucks. No, it's really good. It works really well. Even for a turbo application, I have the turbo one up there, and it enhances what the tune port does. Just even more torque. What is everything I need to put a TPI on my Gen 1 350 truck? I don't know about the harness and the ECU stuff. We ran ours with a standalone management system. We ran ours with, you can run it with Holly or a fast, but you could also run it with the stock stuff. I don't think the stock stuff is that great. Vortec TPI, that would be good. My work truck is a 91 C4 Corvette. The TPI, and I pull 4.6 and close straight. Nice, 18 miles per gallon. That is cool. 22 psi and 155 degrees. Is it? I was gonna say it must have an intercooler in it. Yeah. Early GM CPI for the win, said no one ever. Yeah. TPI C30 Suburban, that's cool. One of your, and is it a compound deal? I have an intercooler, just too small, no room for a bigger one. Yeah, if you're going for high boost stuff, an air to water really is the way to go. Just put it in your passenger seat, man. Cut some holes in that firewall. Yeah, if you're running an air to air, it's going to have to be good size for that. How's our poll doing? Would you pick a TPI over a Carb for a small block truck build? 77% saying yes. Twin GT3582s and twin GT45s. So you have 4 turbos on them? From what I read about it, it's relatively easy upgrade from a stock TBI. Oh, okay, maybe use the TBI. Would you change the computer and the harness? Because the TBI harness is definitely going to be different, right? Yeah, Honda Tech, you're right. 155 shouldn't kill the motor. I mean, I've run 135 for a half an hour on a non-intercooled deal, as long as you have the air, fuel, and timing right. Are air to water primarily for short runs? Is air to air simpler and plenty for the street? You can run either one, either place. Air to water is just better for drag racing because you can put ice water in it. And we run those at Bonneville. But I also ran an air to water on my Sprint on the street, and it worked great. But an air to air is good too if it's big and you have lots of cooling air. 69 Camaro TPI, good. Will the intake bolt up to a Gen 1 block? I think it does. I think maybe only the middle holes are different, but it's not something you can't make work. And I think that different years of the tune port had different intake bolt patterns. Somebody chime in on that. I thought that they did. I need to look at 87 up the middle holes. That's what I thought, because I thought that my 85 with the iron heads was the same as every other small block. But you can still make the middle holes work though, right? Yeah, that's what I thought, Blue Collar. Thanks. Now it makes me wonder. So I have a few of them at West Tech. Makes me wonder which years they are. I ran a 0.9 lambda on the last bowl. Yeah, that's not good. Yeah, Brad said that a friend of mine has a TPI on a 383 Jeep buggy, 224 cam. 224 cam on a 383 would put it right in the range. Although a TPI on a 383 is going to be fairly low RPM. Even with a really big cam that I ran, which was kind of ridiculous, quite honestly. On the EFI test, on the TPI test, I think it still made peak power. Yeah, here's a TPI shootout. Final stock TPI made peak power. Oh, between 48 and 51, it was 410 horsepower. So right in that range. And this was like a, man, I think that this was a, if I remember, I think this was a 242, 248 cam in this 383. It was really big. This thing still weighed 500 foot-pounds though. And much more with a big tube ported runner one or ported base and stuff. Had a 74 flat tap at 350 with LB9 305 TPI heads with TPI injection. Nice, 14097. It's right where it should be. Blue collar, I had the XE2 18224. That's a real popular cam range. I always believe the L98 should have been used as a direct replacement for the L05. Yeah, 0.9 lambda is pretty crispy. Let's see. 13.2. Yeah, that's it's not bueno at 22 pounds and 25 degrees. Any reason a Terminator X with a dual sync distributor can't be used as an engine management? It can be used as the distributor for that, yeah. Scott, what's up? What do you think a rusty fuel neck will do? To deposit rust in there? Yeah, that's not good. That is not good at all. Scott, good luck, man. So we're at 71%. So pick the TPI. Big thumbs up for the TPI crew. The standalone we used was a fast XFI on the tune part testing, but we've also run tune port stuff with recently on the, what do you do it on? We ran the TPI on the L99 and we ran it with a Holly too. Just run it with a distributor. KD's, which motor is this? How can the fuel sock be rusty? Just the metal pinch frame part of it? Yeah, 0.73 would be better. 10.7. Yeah, that's gonna definitely be on the conservative side. Oh, the 305. Okay. Yeah, David, EFI definitely for crawlers because of the angles that they get at. Robert, you're running E7 heads. I see a guy online running 10s, 9s with them. With boost and or nitrous, they're doing that. Saw quite a few rusty fuel socks when replacement goes in BMWs. So it's from not having any fuel in them. Try Lambda. Have a complete TPI setup with all the factory wiring, harnessing, computer, and distributor if anyone's interested. Peter has TPI stuff if you guys are interested. Lambda. You should see a bit more with the 3582s. If you have two of those, but you're not compounding one 3582 into another, right? Are you just running twins on it? Were the truck vendor carbs any good off-road? I don't know. I don't think I've ever even looked at those. What did they do to change the angle potential? Did they do something to the floats or something? Thanks for the information. Have you tried to mix between 1.6 and 1.7 rockers on GT40P heads? The head itself is not going to dictate whether or not that rocker combination is going to do anything. What cam are you doing it with? What's the rest of the motor? What's the intake? That's something you have to test on your individual application to see if it's going to do anything. I would suspect if you have a stock cam, putting 1.7s on both of them is the way to go because the motor wants more camshaft. I love the knowledge and skill David Visor is showing us 318 build. I'm amazed at the artistry of the changes he can make to a very poor head. Yeah, he's really good at porting. There's no doubt about that. Yeah, David definitely is a treasure. So if you guys haven't, please go take a look at his channel. I'm sure most of the guys here have done that. Wish you had an M42 to dyno with the GL8 shootout. What is an M42? An M45 supercharger? Or I don't know what an M42 is. Major problem with TPI with MAF. It's 2 3/4 and the speed density conversions made me change my mind. So the mass air meter was restrictive. Master Blaster 2 go in, 1 come out. With Blaster 100 go in, 1 come out. I don't remember what the number he said, but it was big though. The 54 is just a twin setup. The Suburban is the twin GT3 3582s into twin GT45s. Are you wanting to do all of what twin GT45s would do and then wanting more response for the other ones? Like, are you utilizing all of the boost at 3,000 or 3,500 RPM, and then all of the boost at 6,000 or 7,000 RPM that combination will do. M42 is the old BMW 4-cylinder. So from like a 320i or 2002. My TPI AFR 185 headed 3 made 458 rear torque, 340 horsepower. Nice. So Ian joined the YouTube ranks. He's a good guy. Check out his channel if you get a chance. Full custom Ian. So shout out to Ian. Go, Scott's saying go take a look at it if you want to listen to Scott. Let's see where we are. Yeah, just killing it today. Just owning it. Can't watch Bonanza the Rifleman. So you're a kindred spirit to Sanchez. He watches all that stuff. Hogan's Heroes, not Matlock, but Perry Mason, the Lone Ranger, lots of that old school stuff. Turbo Century. Yeah, 0.73 is in the 10s. 10.7 is that will stop the power curve from climbing. Rawhide, that's another one he watches. And then was one Wagon Train or something like that? Werner Kempler. Colonel Klink. Who? John Banner was the was Sergeant Schultz. Working on a new TPI system now for a 406, debating on the first or building a stock unit with Arizona Speed Marine runners. I have putting in a 27-foot Sea Ray Sundancer. Cool. Yeah, hit those likes, yo. Actually, our percentage of likes is pretty good. Nobody likes me. Are you doing Arizona Speed Marine Siamese runners, or are you doing the big tube ones? So our pull is down to 69%. Way to go, Getaway. Points for you, man. He always hits the like. He knows how to do it. He was raised right. Arizona Speed Marine didn't have Siamese. Who was that? SLP did, right? Big tube if we do. Bigger question, is the new Phytech system a good one to run, the TPI? I don't know. I don't have a lot of experience or any experience with the Phytech stuff. Off topic, did you see Gail's last video on air intakes? I did not. I'll have to watch it. Steve, I'm the last guy to ask about Drag Week. In fact, I was asking Chad about that. about doing these, Rocky Mountain and Sick Week and stuff, and I wanted to ask him, you know, what do you do for your first time? Because I've never done it, but Jimmy and I are talking about doing it in his NSX, and I think it would be fun. I just don't, when it's your first time doing something, you don't really have any idea. When using RP rod bolts in a stock RPM small block Chevy, do you need to resize the rods? We always do. Please remind us. I forget. Yeah, Scott, the Sick Week thing was pretty cool. I just like to go. Whenever you go to these kinds of races, obviously there's politics and nonsense because people's egos are just ridiculous. But there's also lots of really good people, and that's the thing that I seek out. Is there's going to be good people there, and you get to go hang out with them. And let's face it, you're talking about car stuff, so it's awesome. So, Michael, you like to call it a torque filter? The tune board a torque filter? Excuse me. There are some real high dollar bills on those things. If you look at uh, what Alex's dad Dennis did, uh, what Dennis Taylor did. I don't have to reference him to Alex. Dennis has been doing this a long time, and he's really good at what he does. But yeah, those kinds of things, or the drag week guys. Who's got the 57 that crashed? He does stuff on Street Outlaws. Anyway, guys like that. Lutz, that's who it is. I don't know why I couldn't think of Lutz. Have you ever tested the first TPI? I haven't. Seems to be the absolute best available. I don't know that that's the case. I don't know that there is that designation anyway, because when I tested all the other ones, because first wasn't, I don't even think available then when I did that test, but you would just want to produce power in different RPM ranges. So again, like we talked about, it'd be where do you want to make power? An Excel Super Ram is going to make power in a different RPM range than the long runner stuff, and different than the mini Ram. The SLP one was unique, although not super powerful. Alex Taylor is very impressive. She's a doll too. She's amazing in person. When you say TPI, do you mean stock GM TPI or the aftermarket type bolt-on throttle body EFI? TPI, tune port induction. Throttle body would be TBI. Hot Rod Power Tour. That's why I want to get the Omni done so that I can run that. In fact, let's while we're on here, let's call. Kind of forgot about that. Have you ever run a Holley 4500 TBI? I have not. Is timing for boosted 93 and 85 roughly the same? No, it's not anywhere near the same. A lot more timing for E85 than 93. And then even less for 91. So no answer from Ben. I'm curious to see. I want to know what happened with his. He said they broke a wheel bearing or something, so I want to see what happened. No, Ellis, the TPI throttle body injection, TPI tune port injection, CFI central fuel injection, I think. Tina Pierce, I think I follow her too. That was going to be the first guest appearance on the live. Not live. I did an interview with her. That video will be coming out. I'm just trying to get a couple of more photos to finish it up. Blue collar. So you did the whole thing in 2010. It is a really, really long drive. I don't think I would do that. I think I would rather do where we go to a shorter distance thing and do racing. I've never met Chuck. I did meet Chris, Kamikaze Chris. I met a couple of the guys when I was standing there with Chad at I think we were at, this was way back. This was at PRI probably. I think it was at PRI. Newton, Iowa to Mobile, Alabama. It is a long haul. I've driven across the United States. I know it's like, it's not a fun deal. You should look into the Nora 1000 in Baja if you want to. It's called the happiest race. Even more fun when you win your class. Is that an off-road race? What oil pan, oil, and oil pump did you run when you ran the Silver State in your Mustang? Stock oil pump, stock oil pan, and the oil that we used was Mobil 1 probably. Followed Drag Week last year as a spectator. It's a blast. Met a ton of cool people. That would be cool. I'd like to do. We want to do. That's Jimmy's down in like Atlanta or somewhere in Georgia. What's your opinion on cryogenic treatment for parts? I've never tried it or tested it. I've heard good things, but that's as much as I can tell you about it. That's all that I can tell you. I can't tells no more. So that one's not going to work out. that one's terrible. This one's doing okay right now. Let's see. Let's see if you come back down into the zone. Wow, I guess good things come to those who wait. I just stayed in. because that's how I do it. We'll see what happens. A good friend Steve does drag week almost every year. He did it in a Pontiac 400 powered Formula. Nice. Before multi-port injection, what is the difference between TBI and TPI? Well, TPI is multi-port injection. Tune-port injection has an individual injector for each cylinder. TBI has a throttle body with injectors in it that distribute the fuel like a carburetor to the intake manifold. Tune-port injects the fuel with injectors down at the base of the intake manifold into the cylinder head. So on the TPI, the intake manifold is basically only flowing air. Off-road race from Ensenada to Cabo, stage race. Cool. Any plans to dyno an SRT4 engine or install one in your Omni? I won't install one in the Omni, but one of the guys at the car farm, I think his son has an SRT4 that's all hopped up, so we could do some chassis dyno stuff on that. Hollow parts in Minnesota or cryo parts. That's true. Yeah. Scott, you like the Greg Ken bin? They don't write them like that anymore. Strong rods for an LQ4 build of 650 horsepower. It already has the rods in it that you need to make 650 horsepower. Anderson's in the house. The first TPI uses a 1050 CFM throttle body and has huge runners that flow very well. By all accounts, it makes up the difference of all the others. That's not true. Because the throttle bodies that we tried when we ran a lot of these were 1200 CFM throttle bodies. The flow potential or the power potential of the tune port induction systems, all of these tune port induction systems, is not limited by the throttle body. The throttle body flows way more air. 1000 CFM is enough to make a lot of power. Certainly a lot more than the 350 or 400 or 450 that we were making. Twice as much as we need. So that's not a problem. Where the potential limitation is not actually airflow. It's in the runner length. So the runner length will dictate where this thing wants to make peak power. So regardless of what the intake flows, if it wants to make peak power at 4,800 RPM, you're going to be limiting power because it's a lot easier to make lots of power with more engine speed as long as you do all the things that are necessary to do that. But if the first setup, what I would expect the first setup to do is, if it is better, I would expect it to do similar things compared to what a ported lower manifold and big tubes do compared to a stock one. So it's the same curve, elevates it basically everywhere and makes some more power than the stock one does. That's what I would expect it to do. I want to test it to see, but having tested all of the different variations, I have a pretty good idea. I have been talking to Todd. I have not tested a variable Venturi carburetor. Piston manufacturers, excuse me. Piston manufacturers have a different option for ring gap, street race, nitrous. What do you suggest for street E85? Is it boosted or not? If it's naturally aspirated, just go by what the ring manufacturer says for performance street. If it's boosted, then you need to be in the 6.5 thousandths is what I put on, 6.5 thousandths per inch of bore. So Honda Tech had a 351 with a Predator on it. I mean, the Predator carburetor has shown itself to work. I just have never tested one. I think the 87 5-liter Mustang base model was about $12,500 from the factory. That's about what I paid for my. I bought one in 87. I bought mine in November of 87. It was an 88 model year, and I still have the original, all the original package or the information, the original sales, the MSRP thing, all of that stuff. Would a big block Chevy Super Victor make more torque than Edelbrock ProFlow EFI? I don't know what the ProFlow EFI intake manifold looks like. I don't know what that entails. So that's a single plane. Are you talking about the? Is it the ProFlow 4? Is it the ProFlow XT? Which one are you talking about? Any information on the Blueprint 4-banger with the LS head? I don't think it's going to happen, is the last I heard. David, Richard, I thought about taking a week off and fly to California and link up with you and fab some outrageous intake ideas. I have an idea for a remote blower to an intake manifold with runners. We've run lots of blowers with manifolds that have lots of runner length. Got to make the easy 302 TPI. See if Jim screwed up because it's easy. It sounds like Deezy. Nice. For Sheezy. Absolutely love you to test the first TPI as a completely different animal. It's not a completely different animal. It's a long runner tune port setup that's bigger. But again, I would like to test it just to show what it does, because I've had after doing the tune port stuff, that's the single biggest question I get about tune port stuff is, have you done the first stuff? And I haven't. Would an Edelbrock street tunnel ram small box Chevy be decent on the street with a 4-inch runner extension mounted below the dual quad plenum? So you want to raise the, because the way that those normally work is that they have a top that bolts on to the bottom section, and the bottom section just comes up and ends up in 8 chopped off tubes, basically. For a 4-inch runner extension would be good for that. It would definitely make more torque. Richard, got my hands on one of the new Chevy 2.7 liter turbos, found some 85. Yeah, the motor's rated differently actually on E85. If that's the 2.7 Atlas motor, is that the one that you're talking about? David, yeah, I have put my email up here a few times. I've got a new in the box Predator with the extra tuning kit with fuel cams and door springs, but I've never used it. I'm looking for a second one for the twin setup on an 871. There you go. Is the 2.7 the new one? I'm not familiar with that. I mean, I just haven't done any testing on it. The cool thing is to do what Freiberger did and put the blower on top of the tunnel ram. That helps. It does what the tunnel ram does. 67% are saying that they would pick the TPI over the carb. So go ahead and end our poll there because we got a couple more minutes. I got to go take care of some puppies. Love the channel, Rich. I'm attempting to extend my positive displacement blower manifold runners via delete plates on my 4.6. Cool. Good luck, man. Yeah, Scott, the only problem with the big blower on top of tunnel ram is it would probably work best in a boat where you're not having to look over it. Delete plates were designed for NA applications. Just never heard somebody putting under a PD manifold. We'll see. How big are the delete plates? Are they 1 inch or how big are they? Can you do a blower test with a 4-inch spacer under the blower? Who sells that spacer? Awesome. Long tube runners tuned for low and mid-range torque. Excel and a couple of other vendors in that era came up with 1 3/4 inch runners to boost power on 3 strokers. Oh, so it's a new one? Okay. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know how having an intercore there definitely helps power. But I don't know how just having an open plenum would affect power. I had an Excel base manifold and runners on my 350 IROC. Yeah, I tested those. They work good. And then the Super Ram works good also, but changes where the thing makes power. It doesn't make the low speed power that the long runner runners did, but makes more power on top. It does exactly what you would expect of a runner length change. 1.5 inches thick. Okay. You should do a Mythbusters set of videos. I think what I would test are the throttle body spacers. I kind of thought that the spark plug stuff would be a little like that, but yeah, I do like the way that the Langenfelder box ram or the Excel Super Ram. I like the way that it looked. I had it on a 406, and then I also tested We did it on the 383. Sledgehammer was not a long runner tune port manifold. Sledgehammer was a dedicated intake manifold that they did that had a tune port throttle body on it, but was more like a stealth ram. I tested the Edelbrock runners and their base, and tested the TPI SF, which was really good too. Some Hemis have dual plugs per cylinder. Excuse me, does it really add power? That's not why they did it. They probably did it on the dual plug Hemis on the Gen 3 stuff. They did it to help with emissions, because a Hemi chamber is not very efficient. It's really big. And so, and the chamber makes it so that you have to have a big dome in the piston, and it's not good for flame travel, and it's bad for emissions. So having 2 spark plugs to try to ignite everything tends to help that. I thought I could score for an SLP T-Ram. I do that in a heartbeat. Take a look at the video that I have up. That one we tested because somebody had one, but it didn't do as well as the others. So the first TPI natural intake is 1150. I'll pick one up and test it on the Suburban after the stock TPI test. That'd be cool. Yeah, doing the spark plug test at least shows you where not to look for power. You're already getting that part of it, so let's get it somewhere else. And on that note, it is time to go. I will be back tonight. Thank you guys all for showing up. Always cool to spend time with you guys, and I'll be back at 7-ish. 7-ish.